here this afternoon. Glad to see all of you that are here. I was thinking about a passage that's in the book of Job that talks about Job was saying how a man's life is a few days and many troubles, full of troubles, difficulties, and problems. And as you get older, that's something you notice more than you do when you're younger. I was thinking about it, things get more difficult for you as you get older. I have a tendency to be spending a tremendous amount of time looking for things that I didn't seem like that was, an issue I had when I was younger. And hearing, I have a little trouble hearing. John wanted to know if something about popcorn, and I couldn't figure out what in the world he was wanting to know about popcorn. And come to find out, it was PowerPoint he was talking about. And things like that is, it's has a tendency. When you're doing things, it's also, more difficult. And you have difficulties and problems, and sometimes you reflect on, I told Norma maybe it's the best thing to do, just go sit on the couch and watch TV. Just forget it, not even try to do things. But I know that's not the answer, we can't give up. We have to just keep on trying and do the best we can in whatever we do. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is when I work, I like to listen to the book of Proverbs, and I like to listen to the book of Ecclesiastes. Those are two books that I like, I really enjoy. I can listen to them over and over and over again. And it just seems like every time I listen to it, something else kind of pops out there. And I think about it. Well, today what I want to do just for a little bit of time is talk about some verses there in Proverbs. And just some selected verses. But I want to consider verses in Proverbs that have to do with things that foolish people do and things that wise men do, or decisions that men make, and some are wise and some are foolish. And the word fool is used a lot of times there in the book of Proverbs, speaking about individuals. He calls them fools, and it's over and over again you find that. But in Proverbs, the 19th chapter, verse 3, this is the first one I want to look at. And I want to talk about it a little bit, and I've got some other verses I want to look at. But Proverbs 19, verse 3 says, "The foolishness of man twists his way, and his heart frets against the Lord." Now, another version, the English Standard Version, it says, "When a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord." In other words, because of man's foolish decision, and that's really what it is, he makes a foolish decision, and what happens when you do that, it ruins, or it brings about problems in his life. And then instead of recognizing and accepting the responsibility, he frets against the Lord, or he blames the Lord for his problems. And I think that that's something that everyone has to deal with, and probably everyone has dealt with as Christians, and other people do. Some people blame the Lord for everything. They make some foolish decision, and then because of the result of the problem, then of course they blame God. Well, in most cases, we are the cause of our own problems. So we shouldn't really blame God. There was an Old Testament story that you all, I'm sure, remember. It's about Nadab and Abihu, who were the sons of Aaron. They made a decision to use unauthorized fire. God told them where to get their fire to offer the incense, and they had gotten it from some other source. And so God was very displeased with them, and he sent down fire from heaven, and the Bible says he devoured them. Well, they came in there, and they wrapped them in their coats and took them out of there. And in the custom of the Israelite people, was that they would uncover their heads, and they would throw ashes on their heads and tear their clothes. But this wasn't going to happen in this particular case. In Leviticus 10 and verse 6, it says, "And Moses said to Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar, his sons, Do not uncover your heads nor tear your clothes, lest you die. And wrath come upon all the people, but let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which the Lord has kindled. God would not allow them to do this. He wouldn't allow them to rend their clothes or uncover their heads. And I think there was a very good reason for that. It was because that he did not want them making a big show out of the death of these men. And why was that? Well, it's because their actions, the things that they did, and by their actions, if they were to do this, it would insinuate that the Lord was responsible for their death. Adam Clark, in his commentary, said, because the crime of their brethren was so high, provoking to God, and so fully merited the punishment which he had inflicted, that their mourning might be considered as accusing the divine justice of undue severity. And that's exactly what I see in that. It would be like they were saying, you know, God, why'd you do this? Why'd you kill them? Why'd you send fire down from heaven? Well, he did it because they were receiving the just reward for their actions. They were having to accept responsibility for what they did, and God didn't give them a choice. Well, God wants men to take responsibility for their actions and not shift the blame on others. And that's what we have a tendency to do as human beings. One of man's classic habit is shift blame. We have a tendency to blame others for the decisions we make. In the beginning, you remember, Eve, she blamed the serpent for her decision to eat the forbidden fruit. She said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. Genesis 3 and verse 13. Adam, he blamed God for his decision to eat the forbidden fruit. He says, the woman whom you gave me to be with me, gave me of the tree, and I ate it. And I ate it. Genesis 3 verse 12. So the fool always wants to blame other people. And because he got into trouble. Sometimes and that's the case. You know, I've seen people that would always, when they get in trouble with the law, they want to blame the law. You know, it's the law's fault. They always want to blame the one that picks them up or stops them or whatever. And if they lose their job, they want to blame their boss, or they want to blame somebody at work. They caused me to do this, or it was because of them that I did this. And this is the reason I quit, or this is the reason I got fired. They never accept the blame on themselves. The fool always shifts blame because he feels that nothing's ever his fault. And that's what that proverb is saying. It's saying that men do things, make foolish decisions, and then they want to blame God for it. Well, God wants us to take responsibility for actions. And you know what? I actually think that we would feel better about ourselves, better toward God, if we would. You know, we just say, well, you know what? I make mistakes. It's like Dale gave this lesson the other night about, you know, we make mistakes. And I make lots of mistakes. And you know, you think, I mean, I've always thought as you get older, you're supposed to make less mistakes. But I'm not sure that's the case with me. Because I make mistakes and I do things I say to myself, that is the most foolish thing I could ever do. I look back on it and it seems so foolish and so ridiculous that I did it, you know. And I'm talking about, you know, things like in my job or things that I do, and I wonder, why did I do that? And I look back on it, reflect back on it, and you know, it just seems ridiculous. But at the moment, well, it seems like the right thing to do. But truthfully, you know, we can't blame God for things that we really cause ourselves, and we shouldn't try to blame other people for our faults and the things that we do that bring about problems in our life. We need to accept responsibility. Truly, I need to accept my responsibility in this, and every Christian needs to accept his or her responsibility in these things. Now then, another proverb I want to look at is in Proverbs 13, verse 20. It says, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Another version says, he who walks with the wise grows wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. You know, when you keep company, and that's what he's saying, when you keep company with foolish men, then you're going to become foolish. You know, I heard one time, my brother, he told me this, he said he loved to play chess. And he was playing with me, you know, and of course, I was no challenge to him at all, you know, he beat me every game. And he told me, he said, it's really not profitable for me to play with you. He said, I'm not getting anything from this. I'm not getting any better. And so if he played with someone that's better than him, then he's going to get better. And I think that's probably anything you do. When you play with, or you're around individuals that have more wisdom than you do, then you're going to gain more wisdom, or more knowledge, or more understanding, or whatever it is you're doing. Well, those with whom we keep company are going to have a lot to do with forming our character as well. The idea of one rotten apple spoils the whole bunch, I think, has something to do with this passage. Rottenness has a tendency to spread, or has a tendency to ruin other fruit. And good fruit, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you got a rotten apple in a basket, the good fruit in that basket doesn't make that rotten apple, become good to eat. I don't think you've ever seen that. It doesn't very often happen. And I don't think that a lot of people say, well, you know what, I'm going to be with these people because I want to change them. Well, that doesn't usually happen. When you hang around with rotten people and people that are lower class people, then you're going to become a lower class person. It's very unlikely you're ever going to pull them all out of that. Now, you might be able to pull one of them out of it, or you might be able to take one aside and work on that one, but more than likely it's not going to happen. Bad companionship can ruin the character of a good person. In Proverbs 22, verse 24 through 25, it says, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. And again, he's saying the same thing. We can walk with fools and we learn their ways, is what he's saying. And it's possible for the ways of foolish men to infect our conduct. And that's exactly what he's saying. If they're angry, they're furious, he said, those things, you'll learn their ways. And sometimes we may avoid foolish men. And I think a lot of Christians do. They realize, I don't want to be around these type of people. Many Christians stay away from men of evil character or wicked tongue. They don't get around them, and they say, I don't want to be around them. But then what do? Well, they watch and feed on TV shows with men of vile and evil characters. Use foul and vile language. They listen and feed on that stuff. And what happens? Well, if we fill our hearts and our minds with the words and actions of evil men, and I don't care if it's portraying someone else or it's some kind of acting to portray someone else in a movie or TV, what happens is it still enters into our hearts and in our mind. When you constantly listen to foul language, eventually, I believe it's going to come out. It's going to come out sooner or later. Because Jesus, he gives us some insight into this in Mark 7, verse 18 through 23. He says, so he said to them, are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from the outside cannot defile him? Well, Jesus was combating these individuals because they were saying, that it's wrong to eat with unwashed hands. And they were saying, that's a terrible thing. You're defiling yourself. Jesus said, you don't defile yourself by eating things with unwashed hands. He says, because it does not enter his heart. When you eat something with unwashed hands, the food that you eat does not enter your heart, but his stomach, he says, and is eliminated. Thus purifying all foods. But he goes on to say, what comes out of the man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceeds evil thoughts, adulteries, fornication, murders, theft, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. He says all these things come from within and defile a man. Someone truly said that the eyes and ears are gateway to the soul. And that's true. When we allow things, we allow ourselves to see things, we allow ourselves to hear things, they enter into our hearts. They enter into us. And when we allow evil to enter in through our eyes and our ears, They enter into our hearts, and eventually what's in our hearts is going to come out. And it's going to be part of our character. And so we have to avoid these kind of things. We have to try to keep ourselves from these type of things. In conjunction with these verses, there's another verse that carries with it the same idea, but it's directed in a different area. And that's Paul's words over in 1 Corinthians 15 and 33. He says, "Do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits." Now, that's a general statement. It could be just a general statement. We say, hey, that's true about everything. You know, about life in general. But Paul specifically is talking about a problem there in Corinth. And the text has reference here to keeping company with people who teach false doctrine. And there's another issue, another problem that oftentimes exists in Christians. Some in this time were teaching that the resurrection did not exist. And Paul's trying to convince them that the resurrection did exist. And Jesus was resurrected. And they're going to be resurrected. But listening to these false teachers, he says, is going to affect your spiritual welfare. He did not want them to listen to those false teachers. And you know, sometimes we think that it's okay to listen to people like Joel Osteen or some of these liberal, digressive preachers and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, we're strong. And these things don't bother us. You know, we're strong in the faith. These things don't affect us. We know what we're doing. But you know what? The Bible says that this kind of company corrupts good conduct. And there's another verse, 2 Timothy 2, verse 17, and it's talking about the false teaching of two false teachers there. And listen to what he says. 2 Timothy 2:17, he says, "And their message will spread like cancer. Hymenaeus and Philetus are of this sort." And they were teaching that the resurrection had already passed. And some of the people were listening to them. And he says that message is like a cancer. And it's not talking about a cancer, a literal cancer, but a spiritual cancer. Listening to false teachers. And he says it can cause serious problems in your life. Another proverb I want to look at, it talks about the foolish that hate reproof. And throughout the book of Proverbs, you find this, about how foolish men hate reproof and correction. And wise men, of course, they accept and they want to hear reproof. In Proverbs 27, verse 5 and 6, it says, "Open reproof is better than love carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." And then in Proverbs 17:10 says, "Rebuke is more effective for a wise man than 100 blows on a fool." So reproof will do more for a wise man and help him to become a better person and a stronger person than 100 stripes on the back of a fool. You know, it's hard to penetrate the heart of a fool. That's what he's saying. And to teach them the right way, because they don't want to hear it. In verse 8 and 9 of Proverbs 9, it says, "Do not correct a scoffer, lest he hate you." And you know, I found that in the church, through the years, it's gotten very difficult for me to talk to someone, you know, and say, "Hey, you know what? This is something you're not doing that's right." Because I'm afraid if I say anything, they're going to hate my guts. And they're just going to be upset with me and quit the church or something, you know. And I've had people do that, you know, get so upset and so angry. I had one lady up in Cincinnati. I went over and I sat down beside her. She was using God's name in vain is what she was doing. And I sat down beside her and I told her, I said, "Ivy Jean," I said, "I want to tell you something." I said, I'm going to say some things to you, and I really care about you. You know, I love you is the reason I'm saying this. And I'm not saying this because I want to hurt your feelings or anything. I just want to tell you this. You know, and then I told her, I said, "These words that you're using are not right. You can't say these words. This is not right. This is not right for a Christian." And I thought, you know, by me saying it that way and everything, it should be all gentle, you know, and accept it. No, that's not happening. That didn't happen. She was stubborn about it, and she just got so upset and so angry at me. And, you know, it just, and I don't know any other way to do it. You know, I don't know any other way to say it. But she would not receive it. But it says here, do not correct a scoffer lest he hates you. Rebuke a wise man, he will love you. Give instructions to the wise man, and he will be wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. Proverbs 28, verse 23. He who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than one that flatter with the tongue. Proverbs 27, verse 5 and 6. Open rebuke is better than love, carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. You know, when we receive a hard truth from our friend, we need to consider it well. Truly we do. We need to consider it. You know, I told a brother one time, I was around him a lot, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I want to tell you something. I was upset with him, and I said, you treat your dogs better than you do your wife. I said, you need to think about what you're saying to your wife. You know, it's not right. And the brother told me, he said, you know, I told him, I said, I love you, brother, and that's the reason I'm telling you this. And he quoted that verse. He said, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And he listened to what I said. I believe he listened to what I said. But, you know, some people don't. But he said that to me. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. And I told him, I said, you know, I wasn't saying that at all to hurt him, and I didn't want to hurt him. You know, and I said, I hope you tell me the same thing. If you see things in my life and you care about me and you love me, and you know that this thing that I'm doing is going to send me to hell, then you definitely need to tell me. And it doesn't make any difference. It does hurt my feelings. You know, because I need it. I don't want something that I've been doing in my life to send me to hell, and then nobody tells me about it. And sometimes, you know, it's difficult to do. It's difficult to tell somebody, but you know what? I really believe that if you do it in the right spirit, if a person will do it in the right spirit, then the person that you tell it to might not accept it, but you can walk away from there with a clear conscience, knowing that you did the best you could, and you did everything you could not to offend them or harm or hurt their feelings or anything like that. And so, there's a way to do it. I always think about Bob Johnson. You know, Bob is a guy that I feel like is most of the time very positive about things. And there was a brother over there at church. He missed some services on Sunday for working. And I was watching Bob, and when he came in, Bob just put his arm around him and said, hey, brother, you know, don't you, what you did was wrong on Sunday. You know that was wrong, missing services. And he goes, yeah. He says, well, you want to have prayer for it right now? We'll ask God to forgive you for it. And they had prayer right there, and he got up in front of the service at church, told everybody this brother repented of this, and they had prayer. And it was all over. That was it. It wasn't made, there wasn't a big deal made out of it. It was just over with. And I think sometimes we can do that if we really have the right spirit. Another proverb that's interesting to me is the one that says, a wise man realizes his need for wise counsel. In Proverbs 12 and verse 15 it says, the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. Another version says, the way of the fool seems right to him, but a wise man listens to advice. What a difference. The fool says, I can take care of myself. I can figure out my own life. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. And that's the way fools are. And that's the reason a lot of people don't like to come to church, because they don't like to hear things that would reflect their lives and show faults in their lives. They think, I don't need others telling me what to do. By the contrast, the wise man, he's saying, I'm always open to input. I'm always open to advice of possibly older people or wiser people or more experienced people than I am. I'm willing to listen. Don't be foolish. Don't be self-centered by ignoring wise, helpful input from others. And I think the Lord wants us to do that. He says, seek wise counsel, and we should do that. Next, a fool has problems with controlling his anger. In Proverbs 12 and verse 16, a fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers his shame. You know, what a fool does is he shows his annoyance at once. You know, they get upset all over. But a prudent man oftentimes will overlook an insult. And you know, there's a wise age-old saying that says, count to 10, you know, before you speak. And I think that we rarely do that, but it's something that's a good thing to do. It's just take a little bit of time. And one of the things I definitely do, you know, if I get an email that's a scathing email from somebody, I won't answer that email immediately, no way. Because I know if I do, and I've written out emails, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, do I really want to send this? Because once you hit send, you know, that's gone. They're saying now they're trying to figure out a way, you know, where you can get that back. But once it's sent, it's gone, you know. So you don't want to do it. And so I always wait, you know, and most of the time, I never send it. And most of the time, I say to myself, well, I'm glad I didn't send it. You know, I'm happy I didn't send it because it's just going to stir up more trouble and problems. Well, one of the messages, translations of this is, fools have short fuses and explodes too quickly. Adam Clark, he said, the weak-minded man has no self-government. He is easily angered and generally speaks whatever first comes to his mind. And that's the worst thing you can do, is just speak the first thing that comes to your mind, because usually that's something that's going to reflect back and cause problems. A prudent man overlooks an insult or an offense, if he can. Proverbs 19 verse 11 says, the discretion of a man makes him slow to anger, and his glory is to overlook a transgression. And it's not easy to do that, you know, because we've been taught all of our lives, anyway, most of us have, if somebody slaps us in the right, slam him back in the left, or whatever. Now, that's not what Jesus teaches, of course, but that's what our society teaches us. You ever watch cartoons from the youngest age, Popeye and Pluto, you know, that was the whole thing was based on that principle. Every cartoon you ever saw through the years is based on that principle. All the shows that are the best shows and the most interesting are the ones where somebody does something bad to this guy, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger spends all his time getting back. Or Rocky Balboa, forgot what his name is, the guy, Rocky Balboa, but he's playing another part. But anyway, that's the whole thing. It's always to get back. And so we're taught that. So that's what we do. We're not taught throughout our lives most of the time, except maybe by our parents or people that care about us, or people trying to teach us the right way. Everything in society teaches us, if they do it to you, you do it back. And that's not the way Jesus taught. That's not the way Christians should do. We ought to overlook a transgression if we can. Many relationships, I think, would not be broken if the parties would just simply be willing to overlook an offense. Fools tolerate and even justify their Irish temper, and they let it go unchecked. And what happens, it devours them. Proverbs 14:12, a quick-tempered man acts foolishly. Ecclesiastes 7:9, do not hasten in your spirit to anger, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. You know, I like to know the percentage of those convicted of violent crimes who have quick tempers. And I'd almost guarantee you, I suspect it'd be quite high, that the people that react quickly and with their quick tempers, they usually end up in prison, they end up in jail, or they end up killing somebody or ruining their lives. Examine yourself. Don't let your temper take the best of you. Don't let the Irish temper go unchecked, which leads oftentimes to foolish things. Don't give yourself a pass if you have a quick temper. Don't say, well, you know what, I got a quick temper, and that's one of my problems. That's not what we should be doing. We should think, I got a quick temper, I'm going to have to work on this. I'm going to have to get help with this. I'm going to have to get some advice on this so that I can overcome it. We need to acknowledge it to God and seek His help to conquer that anger too. To those that are raising children, I just want to say a couple of things. Don't let them be defiant, because they will take the defiant attitude they have with them when they grow up. And they're going to be defiant when they grow up. And you know, parents think that they let their children get away with stuff like that when they're loving them. And that's exactly the opposite of what they're doing. They're not loving them. They're not showing love that they should. Teens that are still living at home, be teachable. Don't resist your father's or mother's instructions and discipline, because they don't do it to hurt you. They do it to help you. To all, heed the principles of the Scriptures. That is, don't become a fool by ignoring proper discipline, correction, instruction. We will all, I think, progress and walk with the Lord if we're teachable. Proverbs 18:2, a fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but delights in airing his own opinions. You know, I think that we should like to hear the insights and opinions of other people. And I think otherwise we fall prey to the arrogant belief that our opinions are 100% correct. Our opinions are always right. And of course, that's not the case. Oftentimes we're not right. And our opinions may be wrong. You know, this is a sin of pride that marks the fool, because they always think they're right. I don't want to be a fool who's always insisting on airing my own opinion. Few things are more obnoxious that I know of than people who always think they're right and are always going to air their opinion. The Bible calls that person a fool. Well, finally, one more proverb I want to look at. It's Proverbs 18:13. It says, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. He who answers before listening. You know, I'm butted in while someone else is talking before. I don't know if you've ever done that. Someone's telling me something, you know, and I think I know what they're going to say, and I butt in, and what they say, I don't listen to it. And then afterwards, that person explains to me, you know, what they were going to say, and I'm ashamed of what I said. And, you know, that's what he's talking about here when he says, you know, that we're not listening. He says, he who answers before listening. And another thing I just want to mention about that is we need to be very careful, as Christians especially, that when you hear a situation and, you know, this brother did this or this sister did that, just listening to one side of it. You know, that's another thing that we have to be very careful. You shouldn't make a judgment on matters, especially matters about our brothers and sisters in Christ, without hearing both sides of it. We don't answer before listening and understanding the situation. I know that that's happened so many times in the church, that things happen to certain people, and they make these decisions, they make these judgments, and just slam the brother or the sister and never listen to their side of it at all. And that's not right. It's wrong. It's very wrong. And I hope that we never do that. We need to be very careful to listen to both sides of the situation. The simple way to prevent becoming this type of fool, I think, is the passage there in James which says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. James 1 and verse 19. If we follow that passage, of course, we'll be better people. Well, in conclusion, and offer the invitation, if there's one that would like to obey the gospel, after hearing it, you believe in Jesus, and when you repent of your sins, confess Jesus, and be immersed in water, baptized. And of course, that will put you into Christ, and you become a child of God, have your sins forgiven. You've taken those steps and sinned against God. Well, the great thing is that you can have forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a one-time thing. We can go and ask God to forgive us. And if we repent of that, He's faithful and just to forgive us. If it's a sin, it's